Hey now. Welcome everybody. Hello C3 Works from Actuator. Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here. It's great.
Yeah, I thought I'd combine this with what we have going on for I usually do this weekly T-share kind of report, talk about the T-shares. Things are pretty steady at the moment. Not a whole lot new to kind of report there, but something that is new has been my discovery, even though I'm slow. I mean, Actuator's been around since November. But actually October, right? I think that was
Right.
the launch time,
Right.
and it just took me this long to start getting my head around it. But to be fair, right? I mean, part of that is the changes in the staking behavior, and what the OA means to us and all that. So welcome everybody and thanks for joining us. We'll talk a little bit about T-shares and the T-share rate. I said not a lot new there, but I really wanted to get C3 Works on here to dig into Actuator, because I started calling it a funny name once it clicked in my head. I was like, these are HEX super bonds. I don't even buy bonds, man. I mean, I never, other than talking about bonds once in a while, I never really even looked into it. So conceptually, I get it, but I don't have muscle memory. So I did a poll, went out to my groups that I'm involved in, and about 80% of the respondents said, when asked, "What are you doing with your HEX?" There's like, "We're keeping it liquid," and the reason why is because a lot of people want to capture a top, but there's not a whole lot of reason in their minds to stake. Now, I have an opinion that's different than that, in that I think keeping my ladder up is going to be the most valuable thing possible. But I also recognize how hard of an argument that is. I mean, you got to believe extra hard because you're going to rely on the fact that we're going to get price appreciation, because the 2% just doesn't do it.
Well, that's right.
So welcome.
Yeah. Thanks. Glad to be here. And I can certainly appreciate the sentiment that you just expressed about why folks would hold a lot of liquid, even though there's a certain component you stake. And I think, like many here, I was a day one hexagon. So a lot of the inspiration for this project came from things I went through and experienced, like the rest of you did, all through the different cycles of what we've faced since HEX launched. And as we learned from that, I was of the mind that, well, there's some functions, capabilities, and flexibilities I would like to have had. And, we all started out leaning very far forward out of the chutes with a lot of stakes, because we were excited about that, and really still should be. Stakes are good things, but we later, after the peak, learned that we really didn't have a lot of flexibility. And that's a design feature, right? The way it was built. But it was easy to get out over your skis in terms of how much commitment you do relative to what you would like to have available to you. And so this sort of filled what I would be like a gap wedge in golf, where, hey, this is designed to give some nuance and efficiency, access to some capital and liquidity, but in a market disciplined way that kind of gives you more comfort than having to hold it all liquid because you overdid it last time.
Right. Well, and am I not mistaken that in part this is directed towards more institutional type of people, or more TradFi? It's certainly modeled after TradFi.
Yes, well, it is indeed, because I come out of TradFi. So does RJ, my co-founder and lead dev. So it was inspired by the types of tools that TradFi investors are used to, especially institutional TradFi investors, folks with larger amounts of capital, money managers, family offices, things like this. They're accustomed to having a fairly sophisticated set and suite of tools available to them to manage risk. And, you probably heard me talk about this in one of the other conferences too, but you want risk management tools. I mean, if everything is so blunt that you set it and forget it and that's it, well, that's not good for managing risk. It has other benefits. Great. There's a certain amount of things you can just set it and forget it. But from a larger capital perspective, if that's the extent of the flexibility you have, then the way they manage risk is to reduce their allocation to that thing, because that's not something they can put a lot of capital towards if they don't have the types of risk management tools they might be used to. So what
Right.
it does is it provides some of that, and or at least it's en route to that, right? We're kind of in early stages, but this whole idea of a yield curve and the benefits of super bonds, as you described it, that emerges as this fills out with users, right? And then all these other things are sitting there ready to go. So
Right.
yeah, it's exciting to know that.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah. No. Finish your exciting statement.
Exciting to know that today it gives some great, relatively simple strategies and products for us hexagons without having to try to get wrapped up in complexity. But yet, as we pursue our own individual interests here, over time, that will attract larger capital.
Got it. Yeah, and I think it will too. Hey, so for guys and girls listening, there's a reason we haven't even told you more about Actuator yet. I did this on purpose. We're going to dig into some of the details, but just be aware that this is not a gloss over. You cannot just go to the website and gloss over this. You're going to do some thinking. So get ready when you go look, and be prepared for that, because it did, listen, I'm no dummy, but I mean, it took me a while to get my head around thinking about this, even just visually, so much action. So what am I doing? Why am I even talking about Actuator? I do talk about other things in the ecosystem, particularly that are related to HEX. But the reason I'm talking about Actuator right now is pretty selfish to start with. I'm not part of the project or anything, guys. I do have all the tokens, right? I did go get some of all the tokens, and I'm participating. But the reason I'm participating is I was presented with a new challenge. I have HEX, and I am staking Quattro Cinco, but I got more HEX than that, and it makes no sense for me to do short stakes at the moment. I don't think. Right, it's a matter of opinion. Some other people, they might be doing it, but I don't have 100 million HEX that I'm going to, block up for, 30 days. And so I was just beginning to investigate things. So in a very selfish way, I came to realize, hey, wait a minute. Once it clicked that I can instantly set myself up for 14, 50% APR over the next 7 to 9 years. Once that clicked in my brain, then I was like, well, 15% is greater than 2%. Things may change. That's fine. But with Actuator and HTTs, they're liquid. I can do whatever I want with them whenever I want. And so that led me to, hey, I better take a better and deeper look at Actuator. Even though I've been talking in here and here in C3 Works and others talk about this for a long time. It's like everything else. It's a mind share. Right. But clearly the event for me is I went from Pat being able to set up a new ladder with an average of around maybe 13, 15% APR to now I can't do that. And so this is a great segue to another, which you can get a chance to talk about this, but another protocol that's immutable, that's audited, that's transparent, and best of all, it's based on X. So why don't you hit the highlight on what is an HTT in the first place? What is this?
Yeah, that's really where you start, I think. I mean, our docs are very good, by the way, if you wanted to go through the docs, and I encourage you all out there to out of your time. It's at docs.actuator.finance. But everything hinges on understanding what an HTT or HEX Time Token is. And really, it is HEX on a future date. It's HEX, so one HTT is protocol guaranteed to deliver one HEX on a forward date. And it's measured in HEX days. So if we're today on HEX day, I don't even know what HEX day we're on. We're on 1937. So we're on HEX day 1937. I'll give you a concrete example as I'm reading from this. An HTT 3000 So a HEX Time Token, and they always have a time in number of days attached to it. So an HTT 3000 is a token, an ERC20 token, like any other one that you can send around, transfer. It's the same standard. But on HEX Day 3000, which is 2.9 years from now, specifically on 2/18 of 28, which you can find from the app. But on that day, the protocol will redeem your HTT 3000 for a HEX. So if you think about that for a minute, any HTT is effectively a claim check on an actual HEX. No middleman. You're not going to somebody somewhere and hoping that they come up with it. It's protocol guaranteed. You're not having to go hit a market and hope that it gives you the 1 hex and not 0.7 hex or something based on market conditions. You go straight to the DApp, which you don't even need, right? You don't even need our DApp. You can go straight to the contract, smart contracts, if you want to execute the functions directly yourself. You go straight there and you execute a redeem function, and poof, if you've got X number of HTT 3000s and it's day 3000, it's the protocol is going to exchange that for the same number of hex. So the advantage, yeah, go ahead.
So 1 hex is 1 hex, and 1 HTT will be 1 hex on its date.
On a future date. So the only unknown is, well, if I have a claim check on a hex for a date in the future, of course, I'm going to demand a discount for that. I'm not going to pay, because you pay in hex terms. So if I'm going to pay a certain amount of hex today to get what will become a hex tomorrow, I'm going to have to do that at a discount to 1 hex today, because I have to be paid to delay. And so that discount becomes my return. So think about an extreme example to show you how compelling it can become on the buy side of the market. There's another side to this we'll cover in a minute. But if I promised, or not me, but let's say the protocol promised to hand you an 1 hex in a week. So you had an HTT with 7-day forward, and it was going to do that at 0.5 hex in the marketplace. Well, that'd be pretty ridiculous, right? But you could spend a 0.5 hex today, and the protocol will hand you a full hex in a week. That's a 2x in a week. We'd all fall over and say, how many can I get?
Right.
So that's the extreme example showing you what this is doing as the market determines what that right discount should be. And
you know, the naysayer in me came up with some ideas when we were talking about this, and when I started looking, I was like, well, why would anybody do this in the first place? Well, so first off, I separate the two in my mind as two different things, right? One, there are people who want to get value out of their current HEX stake today, which is an HSI, a HEX staking instance. They could be creating a new one through your protocol or through Hedron, or use existing Hedron stakes. And when they do that, they turn them in, and they have a certain amount of HEX that's been built up, which qualifies them to print an HTT on a specific day, right? And so the HTTs are backed by HEX already, because those are out there. But that's one thing. Like, why would I take my HSIs and go make HTTs? Well, because I want to do something with the HTTs, right? So I might do that. Then the other side is, and this is the opportunity that I've identified. It's not like I'm brilliant, but you know, the idea that I can buy HEX now at a really extreme discount, like 70% off, 68% off, for like a 7,000, which is close to a 15-year stake, is like incredible. And that's where I had my epiphany, which we'll show people on the screen, but not the epiphany, but the data. You know, that by buying it at, buying a HTT at a 68% discount assures a 200 and something percent increase in value in terms of HEX, right? Which gets converted to the APR, which means all of a sudden I'm back on track, man. I can take my HEX, I can turn it into 7,000s, HTT 7,000s, and lock in 15% APR because I got it at this price, at this discount today. And
Well, that's
anyways,
right.
that
So
got
better
me excited.
spoken,
Yeah.
another way to put this is each HTT is a market between the side of the market that wants to take liquidity at a certain give up cost and the participants who want to provide or make the liquidity at a certain earnings rate. So one side wants the liquidity. That's why he sells the HTT. The other side says, I like the rate at which I'm buying. I'll buy it, which is what's providing the liquidity for that side. So it's the makers and the takers of liquidity coming together. That's a very efficient market as you build participants. At the moment, my observation is there's some crazy inefficiencies that show up. And as you rightly pointed out, the minute the light bulbs go off, you're like, well, why wouldn't I do that? I'm very happy because remember, these earnings that we're talking about, these market APRs, are all in native HEX terms. Forget dollars for the conversation, right? This is all native HEX. So if I can get 15% APR in native HEX terms for a 3-year period, I don't know, show me where else you're going to do that.
Right. And that's my point too. That's I'm with you on that. And so when we talk about creating the HTTs, and people can go look at this, and how they actually get made and what the process is and all the rest. But that's it, right? People put HSIs in. The HSIs are old enough, have accumulated enough, have enough balance, quote unquote, that they can lock in a certain number of HTTs, and then so that's what births the HTTs out into life. Now, somebody asked in the chat, which we can hit right on it, is how do you pay for the end stake fees? And I do know that you guys talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, there are gas fees out there, but the end staker is expected to end stake himself. So somebody that stakes his HSI has a vested interest to go get the rest of his tokens, not HTTs, but the HEX tokens, right? So you actually have an HSI, you're incented to go and end stake like anybody else would end stake because you want to get your HEX back. Well, they're paying the gas for their end stake. And the protocol will automatically, because it knows if that HSI has an encumbrance or an obligation against it because the guy took out HTTs, well, the protocol controls all that when the final end stake occurs, and it knows how to send the right amount to whoever is holding the HTT that came out, because it's one for one across the system. And by the way, that's financially audited as an invariant. The system does protect all of the right one-to-one backing. So all the HTTs are going to get it from the protocol, and then the HSI holder will get whatever the remaining balance is from that. But he had to pay his own end staking. And so that's the first line of defense, is that every HSI holder is self-motivated to go get the rest of their own earnings, and they pay their own gas costs. However, in the event that they don't, there is and again, this is a nuance, so I don't go down the rabbit trail other than to state it, and it's in the docs, but there is a community end stake function that can be hit, and there is a reserve held in the final 10% of the life of each stake, so that it cannot be extracted and minted through the HTT process. It's held as a reserve to incentivize whoever in the community is going to go and do the end stake after a grace period.
Well, hey, if I was an HSI holder and I got HTTPs, can I put the HTTs back and remove my HSI from the protocol?
Absolutely. Virtually everything you do is reversible. That's an important feature, is when we talk about wanting to give flexibility and liquidity options and things like this, you may only want to have access to liquidity for 6 months, and you've got this 10-year stake. Well, end staking a 10-year stake because you've got a need for 6 months is a really ugly thing to have to do. Having had to do that once, I said there's got to be a better way, and thus we're looking at what we think that is. So I could delegate an HSI, draw out my HTTs from that, sell them to the marketplace, and go and do whatever it is I had in mind for 6 months. And at the end of that period, I say, great, now I've solved whatever my liquidity issues were, and I've got some liquidity back. I go buy some HTTs on the open market, and I send them back in to my position. That's called retiring. I retire my obligation. The protocol recognizes that comes in, and then you can revoke your delegation, and bang, you're right back to an unencumbered HSI.
And for our hedron lovers out there, I mean, what happens with their hedron through all this process?
They're entitled to it. They can get it. It's all there. There's a function to be able to get it, and it's unimpeded is the point.
Unimpeded, great.
Make an HSI, you're accumulating them, and you can get them.
So I don't think I talked to you about this before I did it, but I did tell you about it afterwards. So this is what I did, right? So after we got back from 369, Pulse chain, Pulse 369, and we had talked a little bit while we were there. And I came back, I started digging in a little bit further, and I had my epiphany, my final coming to, the idea that this would be a good idea for me. So what I did, because I couldn't decide what to do, exactly what to do, is I went and got all 3 tokens. I went and got 3,000, 5,000, 7,000. I then figured, and we can go through and you can show people the data on the screen and stuff, and maybe you can tell me where I'm mistaken. So I got them all at discounts, locked in my APR for those periods of time. Then I took each of them and I LP'd them with HEX, with Pulse HEX. Now, the reason I did that is because now there's not a lot of trading right now, but there's a little bit of trading, but I'll earn a little bit on that. And then I took those LP tokens, and you guys don't call them a farm per se, but I locked them into the farm on your protocol, so that now it pays me in a reward token called Actuator, which is like ink. It's like BBC, it's the same type of thing where it comes out, people sell it or whatever, but they can also stake it. And so in my mind, I've taken my HEX that I'm not doing anything with anyways, is sitting there, right? I've taken it and I've locked in, if I'm going to hold it for the full amount of time, 15% a year. I've also exposed myself to trading between HEX and HTT, which should only go towards 1 over time. I mean, there'll be volatility, but it should go towards 1 over time. And so that gives me a little bit of value there. And then on top of that, I'm earning, 30 or 40, 50% in Actuator tokens.
That's exactly right. I think what you'll find as you begin to look at this is, I know, like in my case, I hold very little liquid HEX anymore because I've got my staked portfolio, which I do a lot through HSIs, though I have plenty of native stakes too. And now the bag that I, like many others, held that was just going to stay liquid, et cetera, I've grown very comfortable because of what I see this provides. I can have my liquid HEX stay liquid, but earn something.
Yeah, 100%.
And not have any impermanent loss away from HEX.
Yep. And guys, anybody watching this, do your own research. Go read the documents, read the audits. We're not telling you to go do it per se. I mean, obviously, it's your protocol, so we are talking about it. So you want people to do it, but I'm bringing it up to people because if you can get your head around it and it's something that's useful to you, it's a great way for me to make yield, right? So, or rewards, and I would rather do that than sitting on it. It's kind of similar to some of the other things, and I'll allocate a certain amount, but I mean, like I do validating. So now I'm in Validator X. Why? Because I can get double the APR, right? Did I move everything over there? No, I'm testing it. I'm trying it. I'm seeing how it works. Same thing with this protocol. I want to see how it works and, put my HEX in there and put it to work. And if I felt good about it, and longer term, I'll do more research and add as I go. But I really I started earning right away, of course, because I put it right in the farm.
Well, you have to see that HTTs are HEX on a future date. And when we look at the app, we'll see how the prices reflect that.
Yeah, why don't you bring that up now? And I think that's something we just got to, what helped me with understanding this is I stopped thinking of the HTTs as individual tokens. We're talking about an HTT. One HTT is equal to HEX in the future. That's it, right? It's always that way. Different ones will get different discounts, and there will be multiple versions of these that'll come out. Just so happens to be 3 of them right now. Let me pull this up on the screen, and
are we seeing something here?
Yep, I got it up on the screen.
All right. Well, if you'd like, I could just sort of take us through some of the relevant points first and then highlight how we can see that pricing issue.
Yeah, it'd probably be useful. I have the full screen right now. I'm going to take us off the screen. Let's see if you guys have trouble seeing this. Let us know, and then Bill, you might have to zoom in on parts of the screen.
Yeah, I can do whatever it seems to.
All right, I took us off. So
all right,
go for it.
Well, let's start by focusing over here in this center right area that I'm kind of showing. Hopefully my mouse is flipping around enough for you to see it.
Yep, we can see that view.
That's the place to start because it lists the 3 active HTTs at the moment. Now, of note, going forward in time, there'll be more of these. This is not the only 3 that will ever be. The intent is that we're bootstrapping this whole thing into existence with a short-term, mid-term, and a longer-term one. And then in October, when we get to the end of year 1, we'll have HTT 4,000 and 6,000 start to fill in the gaps, and then more. And ultimately, the community can create these at any spot it wants. So we're going to have a fully developed yield curve. But let's understand what each one is showing here. So HTT 3000. On the far right side, it shows you the redemption date. There's no uncertainty as to what day you can redeem. If you buy an HTT 3000, you can redeem it for a HEX on February 18th of 2028, which is 2.9 years from now. In the meantime, if you bought one of those, the actual dollar price is right there, which is right now 0.00501. That represents a 29.7% discount to HEX. The total return you would get, which is driven basically the complement of that discount, right? Going the other direction, it turns into a 42.23% total return over the horizon period. And then if you did a IRR, internal rate of return calculation, that turns out to be 14.5% APR over that period. So you're getting that.
Yeah, so let me get this straight, right? So I'm looking at how many HEX it takes me today to get an HTT. From that, I know what my ROI will be because I'm going to have one HEX at the end, right? So if I keep it to the end, I'll know what my overall ROI is. And so once I have that, I'm just dividing it out by the length of time to come up with equivalent annual APR.
Well, it's not so much a simple division. Remember, there's a time value of money internal rate of return calculation. A little more exponential than linear, right? Just standard finance. But because you have compound effects, you're going to get 14.5% annual this year, and then next year you're going to get 14.5 of that, and so forth. So it's not a straight linear. This is the same kind of APR that gets used in any other finance, is the point. But that's right. That's what it takes to generate that total return over the horizon period. And I'll call your attention for a moment down here to these little funny graphs that are bouncing around, because this shows the HTT price in HEX terms. Right now, you see it at 0.005 on the top that we were looking at. That's in dollars. But if you'll notice right here, you can see how it says HTT 3000 is 0.703 HEX. So what this is telling you is, let's say you could buy 1,000 of these HTT 3000s for 703 HEX. Then you'd have 1,000 of these. You hold it until February 18th of 28, and the protocol would give you 1,000 HEX. So your 703 in gets 1,000 back, and that represents your total return. Is that making sense?
It does, yeah.
So you see that down here, and likewise the ones below. So HTT 7,000, if we just drop down to the green one, in HEX price terms, you pay 0.312 HEX today for one HTT 7,000 that gives you a full HEX out there at 13.9 years. Or put it in another term, you'd pay 312 HEX to get 1,000 HTT 7,000s, which become 1,000 HEX going forward. And that would represent a 220% total return over that horizon period. That's a lot of return for native hex terms. Remember, dollars will do what dollars do, but the protocol is going to hand you the hex, and that represents this 15.9%. So I'm pausing on that. Is that?
Yeah, let's see if we got questions in the
Yeah.
chat.
You look at all three of these. This is the thing to internalize first, is what's going on with these three HTTs? What do these lines mean? And how do they relate down here to these historical charts of the HTT price? If we've got questions, then I'll highlight a few things that can be seen from that chart, or you can take us in a different direction.
Well, yeah, go ahead and show us what you got. I think we want to stay high level because, so, not a criticism, but yeah, I guess it sounds like one. Maybe it is one. Maybe it is criticism. You know, I came to this page and I was like, boom, blew up my head. I was like, I don't understand, you know, and I understand much better now, but it was hard for me to get this. So I definitely appreciate that you're pointing out, look at these three lines, look at the HTTs, because that's very clear. I have to understand what the charts are doing. I don't need to, you know, the stuff at the very top that's just a regurgitation of what's in those three lines. And I just remember that one HTT is equal to one hex in the future.
That's right. It really is a starting point. This is the first thing people want to learn to internalize, is these three lines. What are they looking at? And what matters to them is the discount that they're buying the hex that's giving them the total return over here, this total return for those dates. And in essence, by buying all three, which you referenced, you maintain a portfolio just like you would have a stake ladder. This represents a discounted hex ladder. And it's serving you in the same way to have some that are going to roll off, if you will, in the short term, some in the midterm, some in the long term. Only these you could liquidate anywhere along the line at whatever the prevailing market discount price might be.
So let's talk about that for a moment, right? So is it fair to say that each of these HTTs, if you were to compare it to TradFi, it's like a bond? Is that fair?
It is, and I like your term super bond, because the bond, I'll explain what makes it bond-like. What are those characteristics that are similar to bond? And then what makes it super to that? A bond is nothing more than a stream of cash flows with a wrapper that can be traded. Very particular stream of cash flows. There's a bunch of coupon payments along the way, and then there's a principal payment at the end. And those are known. Now, I'm oversimplifying a little because it can get pretty complex, but that's the concept. It's a stream of cash flows that can be traded. That's what a T-share does, right? An HSI, it's a stream of cash flows. And if it's an HSI, it can be traded. And so what we're capitalizing on is that, like a bond, that has a monetized value. Bonds trade in the street through over-the-counter trading at dollar prices. There's a specific amount of money people are willing to trade that bag of cash flows at, because it's quantifiable. And in that same sort of manner, we've got HSIs that are just streams of cash flow that can now be traded or quantized or monetized so that they can be sold. So that's the bond portion of it. Now, the analogy breaks down in a little bit in that in the US Treasury market, which is the income cash flow component for dollars without other risks, because that's considered risk-free. The problem there is that a bond is actually a liability, right? So a bond has counterparty risk because somebody else has to perform somewhere, or you don't get what you're due. In HEX over here, HEX and the HSIs are pure asset. There's not a liability part to that. It's a pure asset. So the super part is that it doesn't have counterparty risk, and it doesn't have dependency on somebody else out there performing in order for you to get what you were due. you have to accept smart contract risk. Got that. That's always there. And in some manner, that's equivalent to maybe the payment rails on the dollar system. But that's the super part, is it's a better vehicle for these cash flows because it's not a liability, it's a true asset.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So what would you want to do next to dig into? I think we don't want to confuse people too much because there's a lot
Right.
of detail. But do you want to show perhaps the farms?
Sure.
Or, as you call them, the vaults?
Right. Why don't I do that by just taking them across a couple of things on these pages? So
100%.
this is just the dashboard page. Let's say you wanted to stake. Let's see if I can get this one viewed.
Oh, and guys, the links are in the show notes for this. There's links to the website and to the app and the Telegram.
Right. Am I sharing the screen? Are you seeing the stakes page?
Yeah, we're seeing HEX Stakes Actuator Delegated.
Okay. So all I did is go from dashboard tab to stakes tab. Notice I've got a demo wallet in here and it's showing you any existing stakes you've delegated. It's showing you any HSIs that you just happen to have. So this is your HSIs. If you had them from auction or if you have them from anything you're doing, they'll show up here when you connect your wallet so that you could choose over here to delegate it. You just hit the drop down and delegate this and it will come up here. And then you could draw from here. You could extract time tokens right there. So this is where you're doing the action. And if you wanted, you could start with just pure HEX. See this blue button, new delegated stake. If you wanted to start, you could just put in, and maybe I'll even try it right now. Isn't it fun on stream? Should we give it a try?
Oh yeah, you can. I hope it works.
Well,
Yeah,
me
I'm
too.
sure it will.
If it doesn't, it'll be my internet's fault. But
Yeah.
I could put in 150 HEX. Let's create a day 1,000 or 3,000 HSI. I hit submit. I've got a Rabby wallet here. It's just going to confirm, created. It tells you at the bottom it's pending. You see that? So it's doing its thing. And in a moment, we'll have a stake.
Very nice. Yeah, I joke about it working or not because with the live demos, that's always the danger. Every time I try to go live, I'm like, I'm going to push the button, and then it's like, oh my god.
I know it's always a guess, but it's worked out pretty well. There it is. It says successful transaction. So I know we've got that going. And that's just to approve the transfer. I'm sorry. Now it's always a two-step process. You got to approve and stake, right? That's kind of a Rabby wallet thing. So now it's doing the creating after it did the approval part. Should be pretty quick. It's not too painful of a process.
Yeah.
There it is. So
Wow.
Successful transaction. You can look up here, and I now have 150 HEX with so many T-shares, 0.00576. It sees the day. It's there for me to monitor. And notice available to extract is my principal. I can extract from my HSI anything that I've actually earned or accrued, which at the moment is just the principal. But if I wait a week, it'd probably be 150 point something or whatever it is I earn in a week.
And you'd be able to come back and mint more if you wanted to.
Mint more when you want, but for the moment, I'm going to extract the time token, day 3,000. There's more complexity, but I'm going to keep it simple for our starting point. We did day 3,000. I'm going to extract HTT 3,000 to the maximum amount, hit that. There is a 1% mint fee. So we always pay to somebody to provide us liquidity. And in this case, this is going to the ACTR token holders. So whoever's got their liquidity pairs sitting in the vault for HTT 3000 will get their share of the 1% fee. So I submit, it's letting me know that that's there. And I hit confirm. Sure enough, transaction pending. Momentarily, you're going to see available to extract go to 0. And over here under extracted, you're going to see 150 show up.
Oh, sweet.
And then we'll be able to go to one other page and see that we have the 150. So there it is. See that?
Nice.
It's already gone to 0. There's the 150. Now, where did it go? If I come over here under more, we see tokens. And I can click tokens. And here's all the tokens that I have that are associated with the Actuator protocol. So you're seeing everything at once. And if you come over here right now, you'll notice HTT 3000, my balance is 149. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Where'd the 1 go? Remember? It went to pay the 1% minting fee.
Right.
So you got your 99% of what was extractable because the 1% just paid some vaulted LP farmers that are holding the ACTR token. And that's it. You've got it there. And by the way, this is just an ERC20 like anything else. You could go and trade that right now for HEX or anything else for that matter. And you've just got a token you're carrying. So let me pause on that part of it. It was a good thing
pretty sweet
to see.
Yeah, pretty seamless.
Right.
To get through that process.
Now I can highlight another thing while I'm sharing that screen, and that would be the third tab. Let's go to pools. The pools tab shows you all of the liquid pairs. So the 3,000, 5,000, and 7,000 liquidity pairs are here. Over here on the actions, you can participate by hitting add liquidity. It'll let you add the appropriate amount of HEX and HTT 3000. It'll go into a PulseX pool and give you an LP token, which you can then go over to the Earn tab and hit your farms and participate in farming over here by depositing that LP token in whichever pool you're going to do. And we've got them on the Tuflux and on the PulseX pools. So you've got a good combination of things. Now the farming only occurs on PulseX, but they got those specialty rewards over on the Fux pool. So you can compare and contrast those things. And then lastly, you can look at portfolio. Excuse my voice here a little bit. Portfolio shows you another view of your stakes. So you get sort of a visual in time of where your stuff is. And notably, this will show you everything you have. So if your wallet has native stakes, you'll see them on here. If it has HSIs that aren't even part of Actuator, you'll see them on here. And of course, you'll see your delegated ones. So that if you're trying to do planning, you're going to have a nice integrated view. And we've got some plans to improve this to give you even better integration.
Okay, awesome.
And so that's just a good series of things, which somebody asked this question earlier. I'm back on the stakes page now. Let's say it's time to end stake something because it's 2/18/28. You come over here and if I wanted, I could retire HEX Time tokens. So if I wanted to do the reversal where I send tokens back in, clear the obligation and revoke, this is where I do it. By clicking retire, I could send those tokens back. And once received, this revoke delegation will open up and I could click that and the protocol will let go, if you will, of the HSI and you'll see it come back down here like any other HSI. And this, so that's a lot to take in. I'm going to pause.
It is a lot. I know it is. I know it's a lot. So let's pause. Let's pause there, because I think what I came back to is why I keep hammering on is this. Is okay. So I want to talk about TradFi for a moment with this, in just a moment. But again, people for their own reasons, they want liquidity. They put HSIs in. They get HTTs out. One HTT is a HEX in the future. And for those of us who are interested in earning on our current HEX, by expanding into HTTs, I can swap for I can swap for a discounted HTT, create an LP, earn a little bit on the LP, and stake the LP tokens to farm Actuator. So that's kind of the nutshell. A lot of different terminology in Actuator. Like most of us just think farm, stake LP, and not exactly the same wording, but effectively the same. All right.
Right.
And
So
so that's
you
the
can
process.
start as simple as you want, and the simplest starting point is to just buy some HTTs with the discounts and APRs that look attractive to you.
So what do you want the people who see this stream to do? What do you want them to do?
I would love them to do two things. My voice is slipping. Sorry about that.
That we're killing you.
That's all right. I'd love them to go look at that app, spend some time on the dashboard, especially on that first section I was showing, and think through what each of those numbers are telling them so that they can see the opportunity of just buying HTTs. Because I can't think of, I don't know of anything else out there that earns native HEX at a higher rate at the moment.
Yeah, 100% on that.
Right.
I know I was joking with you. I was like, why wouldn't I just go buy all I could? Once I understood it. So when we think about this in terms of TradFi, what would you hope the expansion might be into an area where maybe some of these players out there would be interested in this on Pulse Chain?
Well, the path for that is to grow our liquidity in these pools. So as individuals begin to say, hey, I've got big bags of liquidity, and I can see how I'm not losing liquidity by being able to place some money in these HEX HTT pairs, which are all HEX. There's no impermanent loss away from HEX, right? If the price of HEX 10x's, all that realistically 10x's plus or minus is normal discount juggles. As that comfort factor comes and we begin to grow those liquidity pools, that becomes super attractive to larger players who want to come into the HEX space because they then have the ability to do those kinds of risk management things through our pools. In fact, I'm getting paid as a liquidity provider to let people trade through me back and forth between HEX and HTT 3000. And I'm fine with any of them because if they want to hand me a bunch of HEX, I'm good with that. If they want to take down a bunch of HEX and hand me HTT 3000s earning 15% annualized for 2.9 years, I'm good with that. So I'm fine letting that just go back and forth while my liquidity earns some native HEX. Because on any given day, if I need some liquidity, I can pull some liquidity out. So now what I have is active liquidity, not passive liquidity. And as we begin to grasp that as a community and those pools grow, because it's the logical thing to do once you grasp the level of the small levels of contract risk that you're dealing with, it's an ERC20 token, then that opens the doors to onboard larger capital and show them how they do have some of the tools available to them that they're used to. And it also does something to those of us in the community. It gives us some confidence to maybe make some more HSI stakes because we can take out our HTTs and sell them and get liquidity if we want it. So we don't have to be quite as tight on big bag of liquidity, not doing stakes, because now I've got liquidity options along the way. So maybe I'll flow a higher percentage out farther and longer.
Yeah, 100%. I love that idea because I can earn on it without the impermanent loss, and no negativity towards the Hedron ecosystem also allows you to do some form of some form of loans and borrowing in terms of Hedron, but that's waiting for Rev 2, for the next revision. So this is just an alternative, and it's good to have different products like this on the market. And I like that. Even though I'm not familiar with all the terminology used, right? I like the fact that it will make sense to somebody that's in this business in TradFi.
Right.
right? It'll make sense to them. And they'll go, oh, I understand this. Now, they still got to get past the risk of crypto and blah, 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 and all that. But the idea that they would have a home that looks comfortable, to them.
That's right. That's right. People will find their level of comfort in strategy type, from the straightforward one-step strategy like buying HTTs to, over time, maybe they'll step out and look at more sophisticated things like curve trades and saying which part of the curve is cheap and rich. Maybe I mint HSIs out long and sell because the APR is low, so my cost of funding to do so is low. And then I take the proceeds and I buy the short part of the curve because it's too cheap. So I start to find ways to operate on both the liquidity selling side and taking side. And I look across the curve for relative value. But that's all complicated stuff. It's just important to know that that's what it grows to for the community in attracting larger capital, simply because all of us do the particular pieces suited to us.
Perfect. I don't know that it makes sense to either buy HTTs or to mint HTTs for a quick flip. That people got to decide on their own what they're doing, right? It does seem to me this is a longer term strategy. If I got into the HTT, which I did, I'm saying to myself, well, I'm willing to wait a good amount of time because I don't know what the market's going to do, right? And so I'm willing to wait a good amount of time, and if necessary, I'll wait to the end date to get my HEX. Right? Sure. So that's kind of how I've approached a lot of these things, whether I'm talking about DESI or MAXI. Sure, there's liquidity out there, but sometimes the market doesn't go the way I want it to go, right? Like look at what's happening right now. And so when I'm looking at these types of things, and even the HSIs, which is a good tie-in here, I'm saying, hey, listen, for DESI, I'm willing to wait to the end. For MAXI, I'm willing to wait to the end. So if an opportunity presents itself between now and then, great. Meaning, if for some reason somebody decided, MAXI is going to go to $1, maybe I'd consider selling MAXI before, at that point, or something weird happens with the market. HSI is the same thing. I've always maintained we didn't know if a market would develop for HSIs, and sure enough, we don't have an active market. I mean, you might be able to find somebody OTC who will buy an HSI from you, and you get close value, maybe, but it's not readily available. The HTTs really make that available. The idea, the actual
lets you monetize your HTT in a market efficient way, taking something that was non-fungible and translating it into a fungible market.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I see that. In fact, yeah, well, maybe Alex is watching this because I know you did have an attempt. Maybe you corresponded with him. You don't need to talk about that, but in the past. But I think it's important. Maybe this changes the direction of the Hedron ecosystem in a large part as well.
Well, I can think of things that could enhance, but who am I? Alex is doing what he's going to do.
Yeah. But the point is HSIs are being created, whether they're being natively created through that protocol or through your protocol. And it certainly makes me take pause because I've been pretty much native staker. I have HSIs, but I've stayed kind of like really in that lane of native staking. And so this does, I mean, like I said, I've made HSIs, I've bought them, but they're great discounts sometimes in those auctions. Yeah, I mean, I'm just willing to hold them to the end, but this gives me pause. I got to think some of this. And again, a lot of it, and let's move over we'll talk about HEX. I'll throw up the T-share rate and whatnot. But, with the changes, the HEX staking, I don't know when it'll change back or if it'll change back and to something that's a higher yield. So yeah, now I'm going to be thinking about this, the potential, because, I could be earning, if I do an HSI, if I do an HSI, I think right now with the discounts, it's so cheap to buy the HTTs on the market. Yeah, 75K might be a little thin liquidity, but I mean, small buys, you can get a pretty good amount for each of those tokens. Probably makes more sense for me to take position that way. But I do have HSIs I ain't doing nothing with them. They're sitting in a wallet. You know, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I turn those into HTTs and go stake them? Why wouldn't I do that? It makes kind of makes sense to me that I would do that, because now my HSI is earning whatever its rate of return is, right? And now I have and so I can always go claim it if it becomes greater, right? If something is better there for me to claim that. Meanwhile, I can take the HTTs and go actively um, earn, right? Because and no guarantees in crypto, of course, but my expectation would be, expectation probably a bad word, but I would think the closer we get to the end date, the more the market will value my HTTs. And so even though moment to moment it might not be up, might be some volatility there, I would expect there to be an increase in value. So if I wait long enough, I should be able to get more HEX back than I put in for my HTTs. So I'm going to earn on the HSI in the background. And if I go back and redeem for it, or go back and, what's that word? I lost it in my head. The word when you go deposit your HTTs back that you use.
Retiring it, if you want to
Yeah,
retire.
retire. So if I want to go retire it, I could do that. Or I could just simply be earning on the fact that it's going up in value towards one. I could be LPing it and earning on the value in the LP pool as it toggles back and forth, and then I can farm it. So, anyways, it all seems like a winning combination to me. I mean, at this point, I've been through a couple farms now, so I kind of get it. I've done the ink farming. We've got tokens over in the 9-inch, so we've done that. Even done, the FUX pools, right? So pretty well set. Um, all right. Let's take a look real quick. You got two specific questions in the chat that came up. Well, let's do a positive comment. Get some good positive comments. I won't put them all up. Before 19 saying, hey, this is a great addition to the HEX ecosystem, and thank you. So I agree with that. Big Smoke. I'm putting either. Maybe it's Big Smoke. I don't know. But Big Smoke saying, when will the icons get updated on Pulse Chain? And I think they must be referring to the Actuator icons or the
Where are they not
icons.
updated? I mean, everywhere I see they are. So if you want to highlight something where it's not, we can certainly attempt it.
Yeah, as a general answer to that, you have to fill out the form and send it in. I mean, not you personally. I know you probably already know this, but you have to send the form in to Pulse Chain, and they'll add the icons if they're not there. That's how it works. If you're talking about something else, Big Smoke. And then this is a really good one. This might not be a bad idea. The different project completely, but I do like the professionalism of Gelato. That's a tax token. That's out there. And that and he does this Canadian Grateful, right?
Yeah.
He does a weekly AMA. I've even looked at that. I was like, maybe I should do something like that. I guess I do it with streaming, but he does a weekly AMA. So this guy's asking, or lady's asking, also, will there be a weekly AMA for Actuator?
So neat. I haven't thought of that one yet, and it's the first time I've heard of it as an idea. So I'm going to take that in, and I think it's great to have engagement with folks. So let's see what I can do.
Yep. And he or she's saying, hey, when I pull up HTT on PulseX, it's only showing a question mark. So yeah, we'll have to go looking at that. You can look at that after the fact.
Sure. Yeah, you bet.
Good stuff. All right. Yeah. And I definitely I think people were sleeping on it. I slept on it, but things change, things have changed, and like, not negative towards the project, man, but my thinking before, I don't think I wrote it down and actively had the thought, but I was thinking about why didn't I get interested further in this? And no, it's not because of P-Dog. I didn't get interested because I could already acquire on my own the level of percentage. Didn't mean I didn't like it. I didn't think that it was more, I can get more. But now I'm looking at him saying I probably misspoke, because I probably could have done better than HEX staking in the past, because the whole period when there was higher APRs on HEX, I could have also been in those farms. But that is what it is, right? So
Well, it's
Um,
normal that, when folks are satisfied with the kinds of tools they have, they don't experiment with other tools or products, right?
mhm,
It
mhm.
usually takes a change in circumstance to put a spotlight on the reason for other tools and products.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I look at it as well. I mean, there's only so much bandwidth. I'd like to, in theory, I can do anything, but
Right.
at the time is hard. One of the big changes that happened, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit. I do think it makes it even more bullish for Actuator. In fact, I think all the changes are super bullish for Hex, Hex appreciation. But just looking at my T-share report, we're going to be fairly flat this year. I mean, we'll be going up in the cost of a T-shirt and Hex because that's what happens. But we'll be pretty flat until summer at this point, and that's probably has largely to do with the changes and all the extra staking that's been done with all the T-shares. But I do think we'll round out the year around 45,000 hex per T-share. Now it's not intuitive, right? Or it's anti-intuitive. I don't know, but it's not intuitive that this is going to happen this way. So I get the question a lot from people. Hey, with all these big stakes, the T-share rate's going to go crazy now. Yeah, perhaps in time, you'll see bigger changes over time in the T-share rate. But for now, it actually has reduced the incline, the rate of change. And so prior to the OA doing all the staking, we're probably looking at more like 50,000 by the end of this year. 49, 50,000. Excuse me. But what ended up happening is with the with the rewards going down, it lowers the future T-share rate. That could have been. And that's just simple math. You go look at the contract and you'll see that every time that new share rate is run, it is based on how much you received in rewards, right? And so it's all about that. That's part of it. And so with the lower yield, it's come down. Now it's created. So we end up with a situation where instead of it going up about 10,000 a year, roughly rough numbers, it'll go up about 5,000 a year. 4 or 5,000, and then over time, we'll see the effects of the previous stakers wane. But man, the next year or two, we have all these stakes coming out. I assume they go to end and they get the new share rate assigned. We have all these hex stakes coming out that got a ton of rewards, right? And because they got those rewards, those stakes are now able to increase relative to all the newer stakes that come out, the T-share rate much higher than new stakes. So that's going to set up a situation where T-shares just become more and more rare. I mean, it's people just won't earn enough hex to replace their T-shares. They already couldn't. It was already kind of in that situation. Now that's really in that situation. So I expect this to go on for a while because we've got 5 years of staking that was done in the past that received really good rewards, and some of them might only been for partial years. That just they're all the way out there 15 more years, 14 years out into the future. So yeah, it'd be fun to watch these numbers over time, but it's slow. It's like paint drying.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
But
how did you feel about all these changes?
you mean the OA's staking and all that?
Yeah, the OA staking and
Um, I felt fine with that. I mean, I've seen enough of this stuff from, what the OA did across Big Payday to other things where when you get comfortable that the OA is always acted beneficially.
Mhm.
So there's good and sound reasons, not nefarious reasons for why those things happen. And it probably involves a lot of things well beyond what I know about system wide. So I'm fine with it. If that's what it is, that's what it is. But I want to have some flexibility to make the adjustments that I need to.
Yep. Yep. Well, this helps a lot. I'm not afraid of telling people I was butthurt a little bit by it because You know, you kind of formulate this methodology, this discussion point about staking for yield and or rewards, right? And that's another attraction to the actuator protocol for me in terms of that. I mean, it's Hex, so it's not going to a new thing. But now, pretty much in Hex native staking, you get a little bit of yield. Yeah, okay. I guess I won't fade that it could be 3% with a ladder, right? I mean, that's, you know, in TradFi, some people be pretty happy with that, right?
Well,
But
sure.
but I think it pushes me towards, or pushes people towards, don't even bother doing it and just go play in the casino. And I don't like that. I don't like that.
Well, that part is, you don't want to see people playing in casinos per se, but I recall Richard on some very early streams uh, describing sort of the spectrum of what the OA staking amounts would be and the impact it would have on the system. On the one hand, if it's if it's staked very little, like we had for quite a while, then you get high APY. The idea about having staked very much is the expectation that prices are going to go higher.
Hmm.
So, am I happier with higher APY or higher prices? Well, the answer is yes to both. It's just about,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
let come
yes.
whatever comes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes, the answer is yes. Well, and yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess and I'm over it. You know, like I'm not bent out of shape anymore over it. But I mean, I just recognize that there are probably some people who dropped into Hex right before the change that are really miffed, right? Because they haven't been able to experience this. Now they got to wait longer, to be able to get whatever they need back at some point. But yeah, true. I mean, I see it just being an even higher IQ test in that, and a belief test.
Well, it
You
is,
know,
and don't miss the point that it highlights the benefit of having a variety of hex earning products at the
mm,
native level, which the staking is a variable rate product. As we just saw highlighted, you don't really know what you're going to get. It's dependent upon the actions of others. We can model it, but we don't know who's going to do what to affect that rate. So that's
mhm, mhm.
sort of what we would call in the bond market call risk. That's optionality risk, meaning I think I'm going to get that, but maybe I won't because a lot of things could happen to alter that return. Whereas at the moment, these HTTs are giving you a rigorously fixed return. And what we watched when the OA staked was the yields on all of the staked products dropped a lot, but nothing was any different on the HTTs because you buy at your discount and you're going to get that total return and that's it. So
Mhm.
having a blend of variable rate product and fixed rate product is a form of diversifying your returns.
Yeah, and that's what I like. That's what I like about what's happening with these products, with your product, and there'll be some other things. Maybe I'll get a chance to talk about a couple of the other ones that are coming out. But it's really pretty cool to start seeing things like this, right? That could happen. Um, meaning that it's looking more like TradFi. And not that I'm like in love with TradFi. I mean,
There's
but there's
things not
money.
to like, believe me.
There's money there, right? I mean, there's
Right.
value there that needs to find its way over to crypto, and I'd like it to find its way to Pulsion.
Right.
BFAMs, this is a good one, BFAM. I mean, let's talk about this for a minute. Borrow your hex, borrow from your hex, so you have your HSI, put that into LP with an HTT 7000, check, right? So I get my HTT 7000 hex pair, earn my fees plus actuator, and take the actuator token stake that gives you some percentage, and then you earn even more hex. Yeah, because we didn't get into that, but that's another level.
That's what those
um,
vaults give you when you vault your LP token into one of those three buckets, you're partaking in the 1% minting fee. So you're earning HTTs, which is hex.
which is hex. Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect. Yeah, so that could be kind of like a game changer where you never exiting your hex at all. You know, just just adding more as you go. And just thinking about the APR. So it would be at a 70% APR, maybe 1.5. Let's just call it 1.5 years for sake of argument. So if that was the last the entire time, and I put in one stake, HSI stake, and I was able to obtain 70%, I would be able to, in theory, be able to take my rewards and even swap them back into HTT and retire my debt in about a year and a half. That's a hell of an ROI.
So what you're describing is what in TradFi or in the bond market, we used to talk to clients on the institutional side there. You want to manage your cash flow, not just manage the cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just in or out, big bags of liquidity and little bags of earnings. You'd like to find a way to manage the cash flow and not just the cash. And
yeah, and with crypto and a lot of the ways I make cash flow, it's all risky. There's always risk attached to it, mostly of impermanent loss, and
thus risk management.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, and that's why I've been super attracted to stable LPs, which worked out really nicely during this recent situation. But because everything I do with tokens, I end up taking their permanent loss.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a game changer in that I don't see the risk of impermanent loss here.
You're only dealing with HEX in different forms, so you're not IPing away from HEX.
Very good. Very good. All right. Good stuff, my friend.
All right.
Is there, where do people find you?
They go to actuator.finance, or they can go to Telegram, the t.me/actuator finance. And all of our docs and everything are linked to that. The code, the GitHub, everything is connected there. And certainly, if you haven't already, please jump into that Telegram area, make comments, because we've had some great ones today. And these kinds of inputs, and we're pretty responsive, try to be, on the things that people are raising or asking about.
Yeah, you've been very responsive to questions I've seen people ask, for sure, out there. And again, guys, we know that this is a complicated subject. Okay, and not picking on C3 works here at all. I get the feedback all the time that my presentation information is too detailed and too complicated. So I totally get it, and I was kind of like put off by all this too. It took me a while to get my head around it, but you have the website out there. Tons of documents, there's videos, I mean, all sorts of stuff there. Really well put together, by the way. Compliments to the team, because I can send people to that easily, right? And they can go read it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. But it's an opportunity. And then before I go, one thing I'd say, I see Haunted out here in the chat. You can come back, watch it, Haunted. It's taped. But one of the things I've been fooling around with is Validator X protocol, which some of you guys may have heard about. You can go look at that at Validator X and join their Telegram. But Validator X is this liquid staking protocol. And so you can take Pulse. It's like Vouch, which is another one. It's like Pi, which is another one. And you can actually go put Pulse in, and it becomes part of their validator approach. And it's a compounding validator that pays you, out more fees, more Pulse than doing it natively. So I've allocated to that. But what's really cool, and they've made this available to everybody now, you can go create a UPulse pool. I won't get the names right of the protocol probably, but and then say, hey, you know what? I want to take 50% of it and buy HTTs. I want to take 50% of the reward and go buy HEX. And I started doing that with my token, and so now it's up and running. It's got 4 or 5 buys going through. So I put a small amount of Pulse in there, and so it earns, I don't know, it earns 200,000 Pulse, and takes 100,000 and goes and buys my token. And so now I have a really reliable way. I'm not taking value out of my wallet, but now I have a really reliable way of just DCing into what I like, which is something I really wanted to get set up. So I have that now. So anybody's interested in that, go check that out. Eventually we'll do some streaming on that and get that out. I want to get some more data, behind what's happening for it. But yeah, looking good. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks. You guys stay crispy. Thank you, C3 Works, and I'm sure we'll have you on again as things develop.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and appreciate the chance to show folks. It takes a few times for people to be getting used to it, but
yeah.
serve the community well. That's our hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm laughing at myself when you say that, because it took me some time really to dig in. So, all right, guys. All right, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.